Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have another fantastic guest from the other side of the planet. Not quite the whole planet, but just grateful for him. But the thing is, when you get into certain rooms, you get to talk to people who are at different levels, and I'm just grateful for that. But Preston Brown, and he's a speaker, entrepreneur, business owner, has tons of various businesses in various industries, all focused on helping other people develop and lead themselves. But also, there's a fair bit of success that comes with that. As you solve other people's problems, you end up solving pretty much all of your problems from an external world, right? Problems, your internal problems. You get to constantly work on those, but I'm grateful for him. We've done a little bit of pre-chat to find out a little bit more, but extremely successful financially and from a perspective of prominence and having influence. And those are some of the things that I recognized when I first saw him come across the opportunity to come on this podcast, is how can we help more people, one, have confidence. You're going to get to meet him. He's a very confident guy. You might say cocky, but he's just confident. Okay. But that's the thing, like confidence is healthy, I think, and it's really good. So how do you get confident, and how do you transcend the different levels of belief, both in yourself and then not worry about what other people believe about you, but just go and prove yourself right about what you're capable of, what the blessings that God gave you. So Preston, I'm excited to hear your story, tear it apart and work it backwards and forwards and rinse it out so we can figure out how we can duplicate living a fulfilled legacy that you're leaving right now.
Amen, brother. You know, my goal in life is to help anyone who wants it have the life that they watch on TV instead of watching that shit on TV, right? So I guess my story, people go to my Instagram or my Facebook or my social media, my website, and they're like, oh, who's this jackass making these millions? Who's this guy? He's got private jets. He's got all that. Everybody judges a story by the ending. You know, and what I tell everyone is you should go and hear it from the beginning. So if it's okay, I'm just going to kind of give you the raw and real, and I'm going to tell you where I started, because the premise that I have everyone is, you know, I want to make making millions easy for anyone out there. Like, you know, this finite world we live in does have abundance within it. And most of it's going to come through mindset, which is going to be sold to us through the idea of story that we can too, right? So I guess the beginning of my story, you know, is I was a broke kid born to a broke family in a trailer park in Kansas, Texas. And my dad, this amazing man, is my hero. You know, my family had tons of love, but no money. My dad wanted to set our family free. He didn't want to be that low-wage employee, that mid-wage employee working his way up the corporate ladder. He wanted to go and do what he was already doing, open a small business, become his own boss. I mean, lots of people have this dream, and there's so many pitfalls on the way. There's so many traps, as there frankly were for him, that a lot of people get lost in it. So my dad goes and he decides, I'm going to open my own business, okay? And he had all the qualifications to do it. He was a metallurgical engineer by trade, okay? The guy was a member of Mensa. The guy had huge diligence, huge determination. He was that star football player. You got to have some confidence and some diligence to do that. He's the guy that caught the ball in one end zone, runs it to another end zone. And to boot, my dad was my stepdad. I was the bastard born out of wedlock, and this guy chose me. So he was also a beautiful man from a character standpoint, my hero. Well, he opens this business making things for people, right? Quits his job, tells us all the success he's going to have and what he's going to do. And I remember being so excited. My dad would go and he'd wake up 5, 6 in the morning and start working in this little shed outside of our house, out of our trailer, right? And, funny ad lib to the story, like just a little part. We actually stole an air conditioner, my mom, my sister, and me, when we were, driving around, we saw one in somebody's yard, and so we stole an evaporative unit cooling system to go and install in his shed so he didn't die of heat stroke, because it gets pretty hot here in El Paso in the Cañutillo area. And he would work there 6 a.m., sometimes 8 or 9 p.m., and he would make things for people. But my dad was missing a few understandings. There's 4 flows of business, right? There's lead flow, sales flow, deal flow, and cash flow. These are what I call 4 flows of capacity in business to accomplish throughput. And he didn't understand the billing, the charging, the collecting. I mean, he just wanted to serve. Most business people are servant-hearted people, and he was. He was this beautiful guy that just wanted to make stuff for people and make a fair wage. And he didn't know how to bill, didn't know how to charge, didn't know how to collect. One day, he's been probably in his business 3 months. Mom loses her job. And one thing that's always true about poor families, money runs out quick. I'm like, my family had a ton of love, but because of the no money thing, this was a new thing we didn't understand. You have one guy in a startup business and one gal that just lost her job and 2 kids. Money gets scarce fast, and the fight that never happened. We never had fights. We never saw our parents fight. All of a sudden comes. And my mom, like if you think I'm passionate, you should meet her. She's incredibly passionate. She's just a passionate lady. She gets pissed. And we know it's serious because that cast iron frying pan that everybody has in their kitchen is flying across the room. Lodges in the trailer wall. It's not cardboard, but it might as well be. Sits there for a second, clanks to the floor, and then the yelling really starts. And I don't remember all the words that were said, but Sam, I remember these ones, and these ones were big for me. At 7 years old, looking at my mom, yelling at my dad, here's my hero getting these words thrown at him. A real man can feed his family. Go collect what you're owed or don't come back. And so I'm 7. I've never heard them fight. I've never seen this stuff, and I'm watching my hero, like, understanding that this is serious. You know, anytime my mom said something, she meant it. And so I got to be the charity piece. I got in his old Ford truck. We drove up to a house not far from where I live now, and it was really interesting. My dad at 6'4", this big, broad-shouldered badass, walks up to this guy about 5'9", and exactly as I was expecting, he's demanding what he's owed. He's worked for this guy for the last few months of his business. And he hasn't been paid yet. He's made a lot of stuff. He's delivered a lot of stuff, but he's still owed, and he's been chasing. And this guy, he had a little more financial savvy than my dad. I knew it was going to happen. My dad could kill this guy with a napkin. He was going to demand his money. We were going to get the money, and we were going to go home, right? And no good story ends that way, and this one doesn't either. My dad's shoulders started moving forward, asking, started going to groveling and begging. And this guy pulled a wad of money out of his pocket. There's some 10s and 20s, but this guy owed my dad thousands of dollars. Okay, we took a fraction of what we were owed after what was probably one of the most grueling half-hour hours of my life, watching my hero get destroyed by some guy that was all 5'9". My dad could have killed this guy with a napkin, but this man used money to master my father. My dad didn't realize what was happening, but I'm sitting watching this whole exchange, and I'm at 7 years old learning what hatred feels like, because here's my hero getting destroyed by this pipsqueak of a human being. And if I had a gun at 7 years old, I would have killed this man. Like, I hated him. And we walk out. My dad's got a little money, and we drive down to the Smiths. It's in Albertsons today. And we bought some groceries, not what we needed, but we got some. The whole time I'm trying to talk to him. My dad's pretty quiet, stoic man as it is, but this day he doesn't say anything. And as we're driving, I can see the tears going down his face, and he keeps wiping away. He doesn't want me to see him, but he's also not answering me. He brought home groceries. I rode back to my house, my little trailer home, with that big box of ramen noodles on my lap. I can't eat that shit to this day. And he quit his business that next morning and went out to go get a job. My dad chose being my father and being my mom's husband over all of his financial dreams. And it was a lesson in compromise, which is something I don't believe in. I don't believe you should ever comp a promise. That business was a promise to himself, and he compromised, but he did it beautifully, and he did it out of love. And it left me with a lesson. It left me with a lesson at 7 years old that money is the meaning of life. And that's kind of a scary lesson when you're 7, because they'd be pretty transactional and pretty corporate. And my mom, being a psychology girl, she would always say these words, and pretty powerful impact too. She said, everyone has a game. When you learn the game, you learn how to win. And so here's my dad with this major money wound in his life. Genius that never made more than 35 grand a year. And here's my mom talking about everybody has a game. And so, man, I learned that game. I went straight into business. I mean, by the time I was in middle school, I was selling lemon juice packs that I would steal from Grandy's, a little restaurant here, to all my friends, and they would get that little sour taste in their mouth. And I kind of created a little brand around the sour taste. And painting driveways in high school, I'd go paint 200 driveways every weekend. I had a couple guys I'd pay $50 while I was charging $10 a driveway. So with 3 guys, I was paying $50 each on a weekend, and I was pulling in $2 grand. Well, not bad when you consider all the materials might have cost you $100 for the whole weekend, right? So I remember one time my mom lost her job at this point, and I wound up hiring her, right? So I dropped out of college years later because I'm getting extorted by this college professor that opened a business, and he wanted me to work in his business because I had already had my business. I was passing all the classes, but I wasn't showing up, right? So he's a business professor that couldn't even run his own damn business, and he wanted me to go work in his business to get the extra credit since I wasn't showing up as much to college. So I dropped out of college. I said, fuck this is bullshit. And I went full-time into my business. So I'm the hard knocks educated business guy that has 18 companies with revenue of, oh God, now hundreds of millions of dollars. I haven't gotten all the 2022 numbers back, but substantial profit margins. And one thing I will tell everybody, like when somebody talks about revenue is vanity, profits are sanity. So get revenue, also get profits. So we can go into all that stuff later. But this went on where I became this corporate machine, learning the game, learning how to win, learning the game, learning how to win. And I built a fairly substantial net worth. I mean, up until about 5-6 years ago, I think I was 7-8 businesses, and I had tens of millions of dollars in real estate assets because I would reinvest all of the money I was making. And one day it's 2019, I get a phone call from my brother-in-law, and he says to me, hey, Preston, you need to come over. I'm like, okay, where? What's up? He said, come to your mom's house. Your dad's gone. I said, where'd he go? But even as I was saying it, I felt this like this sinking feeling in my chest. And some of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've ever felt lost, and you don't even need to hear the rest. You already know it. And he says, no, dude, he's gone. He's here, but he's not here. And you need to come over. Your family needs you. I drove across town, wiping tears out of my eyes because I knew the ramifications of this, but I could only cognitively understand it. I'd never lost anyone. And here I've made my entire life about money, about business, about transactions and wealth. And the one guy that I was doing it all because I needed to heal the wound that he had when I was 7 years old, that I wanted a time with, that I wanted approval from, was gone, and I never got the time. I would have given back every fucking dollar I'd ever earned for 5 minutes with the man. And I get there and I look around and I see my mom, and she's this beautiful regal woman that's crumpled into some kind of creature that almost looks like a Lord of the Rings creature, not the regal woman that she was. My sister's there, she's crying, she's broken. And one thing good about business is it is a blood sport. It's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So you build some mental toughness. So I knew I had to stand up and take care of them. And I started doing everything I could to help and be the right guy. But I was fucking empty, man. I'd never been hit this hard. And I got lucky. I was 2 weeks out from an event, a Tony Robbins event, who I had the privilege of traveling with and learning from. And it was a Date with Destiny event. I highly recommend his stuff to anybody, even though he and I have kind of a checkered relationship in the past. His psychological content is phenomenal. And at this Date with Destiny event that I was at, I was missing the entire event. It was one of his best events, and I was missing the entire event. And we're day 2, 3, and I'm sitting in the front row. I'm paying a lot of money to be in the room and to travel with him and do all this other stuff. And so I had those front row seats, and he's standing right next to me. And, he really is as tall as they say. He's like 6'7" or something. So he really is a giant. And when you're sitting down, he's even taller. But that's not why I noticed him while he's standing next to me. He's talking to a girl that's 3 or 4 rows back. And I actually started paying attention because I could hear him talking to her about somebody that she'd lost. So all of a sudden there was a relevance. There was a linking. Because I'd had this, just a few weeks before. And he looks at her and he says, you're not suffering in the fact. You're suffering in the perception of the fact. I wrote it down in my notes, but I had no idea what it means. Unfortunately for me, neither did she. So he looks at her and he says, "You're not suffering because I think she'd lost her mother. Your mother's gone. You're suffering because your expectation is for her to still be here." And that one hit me. I got it. I wrote down expectation. It's the mother of all suffering. And I started going to war with every expectation I had in my life at this point. I mean, whether it was expectation of the guy next to me in traffic, or whether it was expectations of, family members, friends, or anything out there that wasn't an agreement. Like, there's a difference between a standard and an expectation. If you have a standard with somebody, you and I make an agreement, we have a standard. But if I project some expectation on you and I don't even communicate it, well, then all I'm doing is creating internal anger. So it became this beautiful moment that was a lifting of my life and just a healing moment where I went to war with these expectations and this identity that I'd created where money was the meaning of life at 7 years old shifted. And it became love was the meaning of life. I was not reactive to the pain that I had from losing dad. I was looking around thinking, oh my God, it's 2019, so we're 3-4 years ago now. And I was looking at it and I was like, I have all of these incredible loved ones, these incredible family members, my beautiful kids, my wife, my mom, my sister, my friends. I don't have dad anymore, but it changed that day. That was the worst day of my life when I lost dad into the best day of my life, where my dad, with some of the content I got on that day at that Date with Destiny, became my greatest teacher, and love became the meaning of life. It wasn't money. Well, what's interesting is when you abandon those expectations, when you let them go and you start looking around at all of the beautiful things, and you shift from this transactional love is the meaning of, or money is the meaning of life, to this more beautiful love is the meaning of life. It's where abundance really starts happening. And I started having fun. It started not being about overcoming adversity. And, I thank God had this beautiful gift from mom where she was like, everybody has a game, find a game and you'll win. And I was known as the formula guy because, man, I had formulas for everyone. I had these 7 stages of entrepreneurship and I could figure out exactly where you were and tell you what to do to fix your problems. I have this formula for business, the problem-solving formula, and any business, anywhere, I don't care, the industry can use this formula and turn something that's a startup or a struggle into something making millions of dollars in a year or 2 or 3. Like, making millions can be made very easy if you have the right formulas. I mean, success is it's a science. It's a system. There's no secrets, okay? And most of the guys that have it, they literally give it all away on social media, okay? So I had all these formulas, but I'd never applied it lovingly. I'd always applied it competitively. I'd always applied it out of fear of loss, out of there never being enough, out of needing to take more. And Sam, what happened over the next few years is my businesses like started growing from 7 figures to 8 and 9 figures. And I started, I've got companies that are doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue now, multiple. And it started going from, okay, well, you have a lot of real estate, you have this, you've worked really hard, and you're the reason you're successful, to where all of a sudden it was just this abundance mindset and this shift where everything took off and became easy, if that makes sense. It started getting into what all of the hippies and the gurus call flow. Okay, are you following me? Mm-hmm. And I get that sometimes that's a little esoteric and people will say, oh, well, that's bullshit. But let me give you a quick formula, if I may. And it's such a profound one. There's 4 cores of the human experience, right? Faith, family, fitness, finance. And progress equals happiness. So just like there's 4 cores of the human experience, like if you hold up 4 fingers on your hand, for those that are not watching but are listening, right? And then you notice that those 4 fingers are separate, but they're all tethered to one another by the hand, right? And if you look at progress equals happiness, and you imagine this hand going up, and let's say the pinky here is finance. Well, my goals were around finance, right? Like, I wanted to become rich. I wanted to become successful. Money was the meaning of life. Well, my anchor, the problem I was really solving, was in family. Why was I chasing money? I wanted to heal the wound that my dad had when I was 7 years old. So when that wound covered over and turned into a scar, I no longer had that anchor in family. I was no longer driven by fear. I was driven by faith. I was driven by love. And it created this beautiful question for me. And you want a better life, you should ask a better question. I looked back and I looked at all of the businesses I built and everything that was going on. And I said, I wonder if I can use these formulas to automate them. I wonder if I can use these formulas to scale them. It shifted my passion from building businesses and making money to, I've got 18 different companies, 17 are in and around real estate and construction, and one is a high net worth travel agency and experience curation business that where we do coaching. And all I wanted to do going forward was help other people that might be in that same transactional station that I was in. Find a way to make it possible for them to make those millions made easy. Because look, if you have two problems, right? One in your right hand and one in your left hand, and one is money problems and one is life problems, and you get rid of the money problems hand, now you have two hands to balance all the life problems. You can literally spend all your time. So I started asking, well, can I use these formulas like I've done to grow and scale and build and all this stuff to automate? And the answer was absolutely yes. And I started automating these companies. And all of my companies now, with the exception of the coaching business, because that one still pulls some of my time, just like I'm here with you today on this podcast, became automated. They start growing and have these regenerative growth models built in through the formulas that we teach. And it started becoming possible. I started giving all of the information away on social media, like not only the high level strategies, but the tactics. I mean, if I pulled up my Instagram right now, I could show you half a dozen young guys. Some of these guys in their 20s are like, dude, I made my first million because of what you said on fucking TikTok. I'm like, holy shit. I don't care how much shit you give TikTok or whatever. But if I could pull up dozens of people saying, I made my first million in revenue this year because you said that, and they're in their 20s, God bless it. And so that's my story, man. I mean, it's a little longer, but if we keep going, I might run an hour, 2 or 3 just on that story. But
I know what you mean, and I'm just so sad that we don't have enough time to get through all of this, because I have so many questions, and also just things that I want to have a discussion about, because I think they're important. But something we were talking about before, and then you brought it up again, that if as you're listening to this and as you're hearing Preston's story, so I came from neuropsychology background. That's how I entered the professional scene, and what I studied in college, I also dropped out. But that was the main course of my study, was understanding human behavior, and more importantly, the structure of the human mind and why it gets structured the way it does. And one of the things that's fascinating is they say the human is like the human brain's not really fully developed. It used to be 18, and now it's 25. Like they landed on 25, but they're really pushing towards 27 or 30. And I think that number is going to continue to get older as we continue to coddle the children as in adults in the world, right? They're still children because they're still being treated like children. So that's a whole nother conversation that we don't have time for. But something that's fascinating is, although they say that is the time where like your full decision-making process is engaged and you're ready to go, the reality of the brain development is that most of the defining moments in your life happen, like you've already decided who you're going to be, what's important to you, and the values that you're going to hold by 8 years old. Everything past 8, between 8 and 25, is reinforcement and justification of those identities. And then from age 25 farther on, that's when you're then making critical thought processes and decisions about those value systems. And unless somebody, as you said here, if you want a better life, you have to ask better questions. Most people don't even know the better question to ask. Anyways, I interviewed a lot of people. One of the people that I interviewed was a linguistic anthropologist, which is, you think, how is that even a career field? I don't know. But it was fascinating. And, I saw a similar thing in the research, but I had never heard it put this way. When they go in and find the actual words that people of different demographics know, if you came from the ghetto, if you came from the bayou or whatever, like if you came from these lower educated areas of the country or of the world, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but they don't even know the words of success. So to ask a better question, you have to be exposed to somebody who knows a better question. You have to be exposed to somebody who might be able to help you ask a better question. That's why I love this podcast and why I wanted Preston on, because he knows things that I don't know, because he's had more experiences than I've had. I've had a lot of experiences, but he's had more. And so if I want to improve my life, I got to learn better questions. So that's crucial. But I want to go dig into a little bit of the identity that you chose, seeing your dad go through that. But I'm going to go even farther back. At what point did you fully comprehend that your dad had chosen you, that he was your stepdad, but he chose to be your father and the father figure in life. How old were you when you really if you can remember back, comprehended that there's another person out there that may be more biologically your father, but has no interest, but somebody who's not your biological father actually cares about you?
13, 14 years old, probably that time frame is when I fully understand what that meant. And I say fully understood it. It probably only meant something to me a few times that I held it against him like a little shit kid would.
Sure.
But other than that, like, he was always my dad. Like, it didn't matter to me who was the sperm donor. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. He was like, I don't think I fully even comprehended stepdad or dad until 13 or 14, because that's when I'd asked enough questions of my parents to even discern that.
Connect the dots.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask is because I had, and I actually, my parents, there's something in building companies, you've probably seen this as well, but there's leadership deafness. If you're too close to Tony Robbins and you understand how Tony Robbins thinks all the time, then maybe things don't hit as hard because you're like, okay, that's just him doing his thing. Even though it's a super helpful thing in transforming people's lives, if you're not open to it and you're just like, yep, that's what we do at these events, then you might miss a lot of transformation yourself because you're not ready to hear it. Well, that happens in just about every family. Children, 13, 14.
No prophet is a prophet in their own home.
Yeah, And so my parents, I'm so grateful for them. They allowed us to have mentorship relationships with people outside of the home, other grown men and women who could mentor us. And although I know that they're not my physical parents, I respect and love and look up to, and a lot of who I am was shaped by these relationships. And so as a parent, if you have children, or you have, maybe it's not even a parent, maybe it's not children, maybe you're a business leader, and this is where you come into the idea of automating. Talk about maybe how in business, or how that relates to the rest of life, how you know that the message can't come best from you, even though you could share it just as powerfully or just as spot on, you know the information, but where you intentionally bring somebody else in to share the information, share the transformation, so that the people that you love and want to affect can hear it from that person when they might not be able to hear it from you. Talk about that dichotomy, and how do you know when to have somebody else step in, and then how do you make sure that they actually are aligned with you enough that you feel comfortable doing that?
Okay, so yeah, well, it's a big question. Let me go into it a few different ways. And I love that phrase, no prophet is a prophet in their own home, right? Mm-hmm. So proximity is power in one sense, where if you get around people that have what you want, they have the life you want, they have the understandings you want, they have the knowledge you want, especially if you're paying to be in that room, that, like, you're already giving a piece of yourself for that. So you're invested, right? Like the information that they are providing to you is going into you and forming something, and that's how thoughts become things. So when you're paying for that proximity, when you're getting that coach, when you're getting that mentor, whether you're giving time, money, whatever, that information is really going in and doing some formation of something to generate a substantive result. Now, but there's always a paradox, right? And whenever there's a paradox, there's truth. So, and this is so funny because, you know, I believe in mentors, I believe in coaches, and I am a coach to entrepreneurs all over the place. Well, it's fun to look at this. When in my early entrepreneur stages, I would bring in people that I loved and trusted, and knew, friends and family, which a lot of folks do. They call it a family business. Is there any such thing as a family business? No, there's businesses that fuck themselves up by hiring family and making exceptions, right? So, but I brought in these people I trusted, and even though I had all the right ideas, I would have to bring in somebody else to give them those ideas, because they knew me as the kid that screwed up and, you know, messed up in this relationship in high school, or as the kid that drank too much and got in this fight and lost and looked stupid, or as the kid that did this dumb thing. And so anyone who you are too close to, like I can't mentor my wife. Like it you know, she is my equal. And there's an identity of equality that you get with family, friends, even close coworkers. Okay, like if you don't have a perception of danger or risk around the person that mentors you, and not in a bad way, like they're going to stab you, but like, do I have a right to be here? I know that I'm looking up at this amazing person. Then you don't respect them. You just love them, and you feel entitled to whatever they have. Like, you ever heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can look at this in two ways, right? Like, if my leadership team at my office are my friends, not that I can't be friendly, but if they're my friends, then all danger is removed. Because people value friendship and family over their valuation of work, okay? Now, if you're my friend, then you're allowed to screw up, you're allowed to lose money, and you'll hold it against me if I fire you in many situations, right? Like, we will dishonor common logic. So at that point, if I bring in an expert and he's wow, and he's this, that, and the other, or she, and they come in and they give this talk and they're inspiring everybody. And look at the word inspire, in spirit. And they're encouraging everyone. Encourage, enter courage. Like, everyone's enthused, enter theos. Like then you're bringing in that communication where they can have that kind of prophetic wisdom that they're giving you because nobody's a prophet in their own home. And that may be going a little bit beyond the reach of most normal conversations. But if you're studying neuroscience and all this, then
I think that's that's what I want to help people understand, because like your success, and I'm gonna again, the paradox is like, I'm gonna talk about it over here, but then I'm gonna tear down everything I just said. But a lot of your financial success that you experienced up until when your father died was financial success. That's what it was. And that success, you built an identity around that success. But when it comes down to it, that's not what's most important. Now, as you mentioned, if you only have two hands and one hand is struggling with finances and the other has life problems, then it causes fights. That's why I moved into teaching people more of money mindset and teaching people financial literacy, because for me, I saw that in the research. I want to go help like Sam's heart. The reason he's in anything in life is to help people who suffer from anxiety, depression, domestic violence, suicide, divorce, malnutrition, addiction. And in the research, the reality is that those social issues are more common in low-income households. It's not that rich people don't have problems. You mentor rich people, guess what? If you're mentoring a CEO, they all got problems. They're all screwing up their relationships. You screwed up your relationship.
Let me share this. Problems, in at least my world, are the meaning of life. Okay, the biggest problem we have is we think we shouldn't have any problems. Everyone's going to have problems. When you're born, like, you got to think that's a problem. Lots of women and children die in childbirth. That's a fucking problem. You know, the best moments of your life are overcoming adversity. Adversity being a synonym for problems. And how do we end life? Oh, we die. It's a problem, right? So problems are the process and the meaning of life. Overcoming things is the meaning of life. But, you know, when we're looking at this problem, solution, the paradox, all of these things, and we're talking about the mindset, especially when it relates to money, a lot of entrepreneurs get caught in the money trap. No different than I did up until 2019 when my dad gave me that lesson. And one thing I try to convey, because I worked in those businesses for money up until that time. Now, you and I know, Sam, that without blood in the human body, you're dead, right? And without money in a business, it is dead. It is the lifeblood of the business. Now, Sam, if I was sitting here having a conversation with you, and all I could think about was all the fucking blood in your veins, you should be very scared at what kind of psychopath I am, right? And so it's literally the same net effect in a business. Like, a business is not about the money, okay? Value exchanged for capital in a society where capital is the medium of exchange. Money, it's just like the blood in our veins. We need it. It's not the main point. So when you're doing it because, and I'll give you a litmus test for a business so that people can take the money out of the metrics. When you're doing it for the money, it's no different than like looking at your neighbor or the friend next to you or your wife or your kids and thinking about the blood in their veins. It's a very vampiric and weird, creepy idea. So what is a sale? What is a sale, Sam? A sale is a solution to a problem that someone has. They're buying whatever your good or service is because you make their life better. You either increase pleasure and honor the identity that is the prison that they live in, or you decrease pain and help them improve their life and get out of a moniker of pain that they're in, right? So a sale is a solution. So when we start focusing on how do we help, and we allow the money that we're making in the business to be based on the brand that we have and our ability to and capacity to provide as many solutions as possible, all of the money I make, whether it's my production home building business, whether it's my hard money lending business, whether it's my coaching business, is built around the idea of demand. So how should you start a business? Frankly, you start a business by doing something you love. Because every guru I've ever heard out there, and I don't believe in gurus, I think gurus are just fools that want you to go and feed their ego, right? Every guru I've ever met, they want to tell you they have the solution to literally everything. And I find that to be very wrong. Now, I believe in mentors, but not gurus. Mentors, like if you come to me and you say, hey, dude, I want to learn about fitness, probably not your guy. You come to me and say, hey, dude, I want to learn how to scale a company. Hey, I can help you with this, right? So I'm a mentor, not a guru, because I'm not going to be able to talk fitness like some of these fitness guys would. I can't go into faith, family, fitness, and finance. I can probably do finance. Maybe I can do some faith, but I can't do the other ones because it's not my expertise. Not that I'm not happy in those areas, but you got to find the people and focus on where they're at and what can you learn from them? What can you earn from them? So let's go into this guru idea around money. You got to hustle your way to success. They all say it. Nearly every guru, you've probably heard it too. Hustle your way to success. The greatest value in anybody is their hustle. Okay. The best lie the devil ever told was seeded with an ounce of truth. Hustle is effect. Cause is your passion. Passion is effect, and it comes from your purpose. Whatever wound you have turned into a scar is something you are going to be passionate about, no different than what you were saying, that somebody's made a decision by the time they're 8 years old. That is a huge idea link to your passion, which is going to give you that purpose that will drive passion, that will drive hustle. If you just do the hustle and you don't have the passion and the purpose behind it, you will become exhausted. You will eventually run out of steam. There will never be an amount of money that makes it worth your time. Does that make sense? Your money is based on the demand for your product and your ability to provide it to the masses. Like, look, fun story in business, right? Like I had a home building company, and during COVID, we wanted to build 20 units a month, 240 units a year. Well, we started selling 60 units a month. Why? Because it was a market boom. So I raised my prices, and over the next few months, I raised my prices over $100,000 a unit. All of my competitors said, you're evil, you're greedy, you're stupid, you're this, all these. I mean, I got so much hate from everywhere, and I loved my haters, right? But you know what came after that, and everybody watched the news? Lumber went up, plumbing went up, electrical went up. So all the guys that didn't go up, you know what happened to them?
They're all out.
The cost increases of their suppliers, providers, exceeded their margin. And I allowed the demand to dictate the pricing of my homes, and I stayed at the 20 a month. Only I stayed at the 20 a month, and yes, I had some higher margins for a few months. But then my margins normalized because the solution to high prices is what? High prices. Everybody else gets in. All of a sudden, there's more people. Like there's more people wanting it, and the trades are not dumb. They all raise their prices. All the other builders had to stop. Well, guess what? Now I got the opportunity to do. Now I got the opportunity to be like, okay, well, I had a high margin at 20 a month, and now nobody else can afford to pay the trades, but I can. I can go to 30 a month. I can go to 40 a month. I can go to. So there was the ability to scale if I wanted to, and I was able to pick what I wanted of my market share. Your demand dictates your pricing. Your purpose dictates your path. Okay? If you get good at your purpose, your demand will go up. You should go do what you love for free. You know what? When you don't have time to do that because you have so many people coming at you wanting it, then you need to start charging something. When they still want it, then you need to start charging more. When they still want it, more. I mean, and this is the process.
Well, I was literally talking to somebody, man, we're going to run out of time. I hate this. Okay, that's okay. Manage time better. So I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they run a networking group. And I think that's awesome. I like how they structured their networking group. It's like, hey, well, it's all over nation. You can be the one person who does your thing. And not that they're limiting it to just me, but I'm the only first person that they would have recruited into their networking thing. And it's like, for me, I have a time demand, right? And I have to determine, do I want more money? Do I want more clients? Or would I rather have more time with my wife? Would I rather have more time with my kids? Would I rather have those things? And there's a balance there. And most people don't get the freedom to choose. And this is an epiphany that you might have had a long time ago, but I had last month or earlier. Yeah, I guess last month, first of last month. The idea of like, you have enough money. I used to think I want enough money to have time freedom. I want enough income to have financial freedom. And what my epiphany was last month was that just like the law of like nature's law that says, and things left to its own devices will return to chaos. Energy left unordered will return to chaos. That's the natural atrophy of the world and how energy works. Time freedom is not about having the time to do whatever you want, whenever you want. And so you have to leave your schedule open all the time so you can always have the freedom to choose. That's not time freedom. At least this is my epiphany, right? Time freedom is getting to the point where I now have the ability and the freedom to choose and direct my time. Before, I don't have the time freedom because I don't have the financial freedom. But once you get to enough financial success isn't about having enough money to literally go buy everything in the world anytime you want to. It's about having enough money that you don't have to think about just paying the minimum, but rather direct your finances. And most people are stuck in the fear side of money or building or relationships or whatever, that they never switch into the mindset of time freedom. And then here's the second epiphany that goes just like you said, hustle is the effect of passion and passion is the effect of purpose. Most people think that they have to build a certain level of wealth, build a certain level of freedom before they can have time freedom. Before they can have financial freedom, they need to have a certain level of success. The reality is you can have time freedom when you decide to start directing your time. And until then, you're not eligible for time freedom until you start to direct your time.
Yeah, and I'd say that's multifaceted. I mean, you need to direct your time into areas that are your purpose, and you need to direct your time into areas that are fulfilling. And there's this, it's a law, man. I mean, you want to have everything you ever wanted in life. Work as if you cannot trust in God, and then trust in God as if you cannot work. When you do those two things, boom, it comes together. Like whatever your God is, I don't want to make any
I'm with you.
But then it's I love this saying. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. You want to make God smile? Laugh with God. You want to make God cry tears of joy? Walk the path he purposed you to. And it's just profound, because when you start doing that, when you get aligned with your mission and your purpose, the money stops being the problem. Okay? And here's maybe this might be another epiphany for you. There is no financial freedom. Okay? When you get into the pages of entrepreneurship, there's a different money problem. Okay? I mean, I am working right now on hiring a couple different folks, but one is a chief investment officer. All right. And I've always been my own chief investment officer, because when you get to the top stage of entrepreneurship, you're in what I call an investor philanthropist stage. You realize, oh, shoot, I have this new business partner in the stage right before, which was megapreneur. That's where you're making all the money you want. But this new business partner is the IRS, which stands for I really suck. Okay. And they like to regulate everything you do and take half your shit. And so the investor philanthropist is looking at it saying, well, how do I solve for this? Like, how do I, you know what? The tax codes are written like, the billionaires invest money in the politicians' campaigns. The politicians put shit in the tax code so that the billionaires can invest money in certain things, which gets them tax breaks and additional write-offs, bonus depreciation on apartments, like you name it, there's a billion different things out there probably, right? And so you have to go become this investor philanthropist. Well, all of a sudden, I don't have time anymore, because now I'm looking at all this deal or this deal or this deal. There's not enough money. There's too much money. And that little fine line in the middle is a very short experience. I mean, like, you're not going to stay here in the middle where you balance. So you don't have a thing called financial freedom. You have a thing called financial intelligence. Okay. Mm-hmm. And most people will never understand what that means. Most people, they'll go out and listen to the lies. And the problem in like the coaching world and the self-help world and all of that is most people tell the most recent lie they heard. Like, have you ever heard the customer's always right?
Yeah, that's bull crap.
That's
not my customers anyways. My customers are not always right.
How about it takes money to make money? Like, that's such a lie. There are so many fucking dead on lies that sound so good. And they sound so good. And people will use these as their excuses and their reasons for failure, or their excuses or reasons for not trying. And they'll say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to go out and have the life I wanted and have the life I dreamed about back when it was okay to dream when I was young. I'm not going to do that because I've listened to all these lies. And then you go get just 1 ounce of truth and it sets you free, and you find out that the entire world opens up, but it all starts at purpose. It starts with that little mindset, skill set, heart set piece of identifying. I want to step into identity because you used it like 3 different times.
I know. Well, my tag phrase for me, for Fuel Your Legacy, is identify your identity. Because I think once you identify like who you actually, so it's, for me, my word is love. I had another guy on my podcast. He said there's actually like 7 words that people would define. Like when they get to that nirvana, when they get to that place where there's ultimate connection and they finally realize they are one with everybody and everything in the planet. And like, what's the objective? That feeling. Some people describe it as peace. Some people describe it as freedom. I describe it as love. Like once you realize like literally everything is love. God is love. It's not like God's a second being or whatever. God is love. When you can learn to exist in love and allow every energy particle of your body to resonate with love, then that is the God state in Sam's mind. Like that's when it's like, okay, we've reached it. Now, how can we consistently stay in this? Because I'm not perfect. There's sometimes where I just get flat out frustrated and I forget that love is the top, right? And so I want you to go into it, but yeah, for me, it's like, it's there. Love is it. And I love that that's where you say, okay, love is the meaning of life, not money. But before, this is the dichotomy of what happened for you, is that money was the meaning of life because from your 7-year-old perspective, you believed that money would have helped your dad feel more loved or more confident or would have by your mom or whatever. And so it's like, it's the same thing. It's just kind of like hustle versus passion. We stop at the hustle rather than find out the love.
All roads lead to Rome is a good way to look at it. And the interesting difference in at least my journey, but there's so many journeys that are similar. If I tell my story, people don't hear my story, they hear their own.
Sure.
And they see the similarities. But when I say all roads lead to Rome, it's funny because everyone who reaches that level, that pinnacle, that point, that peak, they become a philanthropist. Their cup runneth over, if you want. And they all start giving it all away. And there's different things you can give. You can give time, you can give talent, you can give treasure, you can give testimony, or you can give a multitude of those things, right? And when you're looking at that, it all boils back to love, as you're saying. And it all boils back to that just philanthropic nature of going there. But like, so any identity, like, and I love the idea of identity. Identity, I look at identity and I call identity, especially in Western culture, a prison, right? If you go and you study the yogic cultures like, India and some places further east, they don't believe in education the way we do because they know education does not equal wisdom, it equals power, okay? And education becomes power, and where their difference is, they do believe in education, they just don't believe in educating people with limited identity, as they call it. They believe in educating people with unlimited identity. And I think the best education I ever got on identity was a man named Sadhguru, brilliant guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but you'd like his stuff if you haven't. And he's like a guru that says he only accepts guru as the name because that's what people in India use to reference. It's like means teacher over there.
Right.
Over here, different. But he says there's like 4 levels of mind, if you want. Okay. Soul level of intelligence that you can see in children. If you've had children, they have that identity, that personality when they're born. Nobody conditioned it into them. On top of that, and we'll go kind of in the home builder format of soul level intelligence, this unlimited foundation you can build on. Memory is like it's the frame of the house. Everybody's seen a house in frame, whether it's a wood frame or whatever. If it's a wood frame, you can walk through the walls. And it's not just memories you had in your life, like your body has memory. You may not remember, your great-great-great-great-grandfather, but his nose lives on your face today. So there's genetic memory, epigenetic memory, life memories, etc., right? On top of that, the next layer, the sheetrock, the insulation, the stucco or brick outside, that's what you call identity. And this is what becomes exactly who you believe you are, but also the prison that you're stuck being. And in the yogic culture, they think that people with limited identity have those walls with no doorways. Now, the key is you want doorways because you want the ability to build add-ons to this house. You want to be able to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, add their identity to yours, build another part of that structure, because the last piece of intelligence, the last piece of mind is this thing called intellect, the thing we value the most in Western society. It's fascinating. Intellect is very sharp. You want to understand a frog, you dissect it. You want to understand your mother-in-law, you talk shit about her. And so we value intellect. We value sharp and quick people here. But we honor limited identity way too often. And it prevents us from love. And it makes us far more tribal. It makes us disagree with anyone who's not like us. We've gone from a society that used to say, I think that's wrong, to I think you're wrong, because of limited identity. And if we could open that up, whether it's in money, whether it's in fitness and health, whether it's in family and expression of love, or faith, which is kind of that internal love, right? And that self-confidence and how you show up and your beliefs and the way you model the world. If we could open up that identity and make it less limited, I mean, people would have abundance and the ability to go anywhere they wanted.
Right. No, I completely agree. We have to shut this down, man. I'm so sad because I have so many things I want to talk to. Like the thing, I'm just going to say it because we don't have time anymore. But guys, if there's one, I mean, everything we've talked about, I would say is the one thing key to happiness, because I don't know that in my life, all of these have been major epiphany moments that have led to me being happy. So all of them were the one thing at one point in my life that like paradigm shifted and made me happy. But the other thing that he talked about that we just didn't have time to go over, but it's crucial, guys. This is like it's not the most important. They're all the most important, but the difference between a standard and an expectation. An expectation is the mother of all suffering. It's a constant conversation between my wife and I of how can I be so happy about the kids not behaving or whatever's going on. How does it not just destroy me? When I lost my sister, how do I look on the surface like I'm okay? Right? It's still painful. It's still traumatic. I still loved her. I still miss her. I still cry about it, right? I'm not saying that I don't feel sorrow or sadness or longing to be with my loved ones. But the expectation that something was going to continue, when you start adding expectation and then you have an unmet expectation that you didn't communicate, then you suffer mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever area it shows up in your life. And the solution to that is to remove expectations. And that goes into the thing that you mentioned about God. If you want God to laugh or whatever, tell him your plans. Yeah, that's going to go over well. But like ultimately, if you want to become like him, you got to start acting like him and be grateful for every experience. And I would say the antonym to expectation for me in my life is gratitude, being grateful for every experience. And you mentioned this as well. We all say things the same way. Like once you meet enough of these people, it's like, okay, so he has his tribal language of how he conveys his message. I have mine. But for me, gratitude is the way past all sorrow. Not because sorrow doesn't exist, but because you start to be grateful and recognize your goal here in life was to gain experience. And so rather than looking at the experience, whatever it is, as good or bad, look at it as, man, I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to experience this. He mentions in his story, he says it multiple times. If you listen to Preston, rewind it and listen to it. But he says what he got from his dad, what he gained from his dad, what his dad gave him. When he died, his dad wasn't around to give him anything physically, verbally, or whatever, but he speaks of that experience as the gift that I got from my dad in 2019. Because that experience changed his life, and it was a gift. And it was a gift that now gets to keep on giving to all of his family and all of his businesses and everybody that Preston gets to impact. And that's the essence for me of legacy. The horror is showing up when your loved one is gone and realizing that you haven't been living a life you're proud of. You haven't been living a life that like actually accomplished what you wanted. And that's when you get a shift and say, look, I'm going to live the life of love, and the results and the impact will speak for itself. I freaking love this conversation, Preston.
It's fun. All roads lead to Rome, brother.
Yes. Okay. Well, if somebody did want to be coached by you, if they're a business or just an individual who's like ready to actually level up their life and explore themselves, expand their identity, where is the best place to connect with you, your team, in some form of capacity?
Yeah, definitely the best way is going to be my website, www.theprestonbrown.com. All of my social medias are linked up to there. Everything is there. We're putting out content all the time to help everyone. We put out all of the content, whether it's tactics, strategies, or everything. I look at, like, if you wanted to work out, you could go outside and run. The gym is free. God made it. It's all over the world, right? Now, if you want the personal trainer, you got to show up to an actual building and do that. And we have coaching options. We also give it all the way on our social media. But some people like the guide. They like us helping them go through the 7 stages. And, the difference between coaching and doing it yourself when you have the tactics and the strategies is just time. Like, is it worth it to go and build that business in 2 years, or is it worth it to build it in 10 or 20? And that's really up to you. Like, there's no wrong approach. But hit me up on theprestonbrown.com. And there's coaching options there. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that we can connect on social media. And then if there's questions you have, I mean, if it's something simple, we answer it. Like, we try to answer every comment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I've got to hop off, but guys, reach out to him, find out more about him. And more importantly, this is my opinion, right? Although Preston's a great guy and he'll probably talk to you and help you because it's who Preston is, go consume his content, go actually learn something from him. And then when you do reach out with some intelligent questions, reach out with some like clarification. Hey, how can this work for me? I saw that you said this changed my life. Because you may not actually have to speak with him to be mentored by him. And that's the beauty of the technology era that we're in. So go and consume his content and then from there, engage when you feel you're ready to take it to the next level. So thank you so much, Preston. We'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.